Howdy, folks, and welcome to another deep dive here at Academia BSB. Y'all know we love exploring the world of language learning with ya.
And a warm welcome from the Sunshine State.
Today we're doing something a little different.
We're going over some actual class notes.
Straight from one of our A2 English conversation classes.
Like you get to sit in and be a fly on the wall.
See how we break down language learning into, well, manageable chunks.
And these A2 students, they're starting to grasp the nuances of English, ready for deeper conversations.
Right, so first up in these notes, vocabulary. This class wasn't afraid of a challenge.
Not at all.
We see everything from shallow and deep
Ooh, good ones.
to refuge and overlook.
I love how those words, they go beyond their literal meanings,
Oh, absolutely.
Think about shallow versus deep. We use them for conversations, relationships, even our understanding of the world.
That's so true. And it reminds me, we always encourage our students to think about the connotations of words, not just, the dictionary definitions.
Because once you start seeing those deeper layers of meaning, conversations become so much richer. You can express yourself better and connect with others on a deeper level.
You hit the nail on the head. Now, another set of words that caught my eye in these notes. Cough, coffee, cafe, and cafeteria. They seem straightforward enough, but they can be tricky, huh?
Oh, for sure. Especially for English language learners, the pronunciation, those subtle differences can trip you up.
And we really spend a lot of time in our classes focusing on those tricky sounds.
Absolutely, we do.
It's not just about getting the words right, it's about saying them confidently.
Confidence is key. We create that supportive environment where students can practice and refine their pronunciation without feeling self-conscious.
Exactly. Now, moving on from those everyday words, we see some more sophisticated vocabulary here. Bond, nuance, breathe, garden. These words, they add depth and color to your English.
I particularly love nuance, It highlights that things aren't always black and white. There are shades of meaning everywhere. And being able to recognize those nuances, it's key to really good communication.
And speaking of shades of meaning, let's not overlook refuge, harsh, and overlook itself. Those are powerful words.
They are.
They evoke strong emotions and imagery.
Refuge, particularly, it speaks to that universal human need, for safety and security. Whether it's a physical space or an emotional state, we all seek refuge from the storms of life.
You know what? That ties in perfectly with the theme of our short story, A Veteran Friendship, which we'll discuss later. It explores how veterans find refuge in each other's company. They share their experiences and support one another through tough times.
Exactly. Deep connections and shared understanding. But before we get ahead of ourselves, back to that vocabulary list, we've got considerable, benefit, carbon dioxide, pollutant, acre, asphalt, concrete, and metal. A whole cluster of words related to the environment.
And let me tell you, these words, more relevant than ever. As historians, we see how environmental issues have shaped human history. And as English teachers, we equip our students with the vocabulary to discuss these pressing concerns.
It's not just about understanding the science. It's about being able to articulate your thoughts and having meaningful conversations about climate change, sustainability, the future of our planet.
Right on. And finally, we have the verb to mitigate. Might sound a little fancy, but it's essential for understanding how we can address those environmental challenges.
Absolutely. It's about taking action to lessen those negative impacts, finding solutions, making a difference. And that's what we try to instill in our students, that belief they can use their voices to make a positive impact on the world.
You know what? Before we move on to pronunciation, I want to go back to that word refuge. It really resonated with me. I'm curious your thoughts on its significance in this particular class.
Well, I think it connects to that idea of language learning as a journey. Learning a new language can be challenging, even daunting sometimes, but it's also incredibly rewarding, that sense of accomplishment, a new perspective on the world.
Like finding refuge in a new world of words and ideas.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next section of our class notes, which focuses on pronunciation. For a lot of English language learners, pronunciation can be a real stumbling block. It can make them feel self-conscious, hesitant to speak.
Absolutely. But we like to emphasize that pronunciation is a skill. Right? It can be developed with practice and guidance. It's about training your tongue and your ear to produce and recognize the sounds of English.
It is. We do those pronunciation drills, focus on common challenges like the difference between bird and beard or deep and dip. We break down those sounds, practice the intonation, and help students build confidence in their spoken English.
Sometimes it's just about having fun with the sounds of English. Tongue twisters, songs, even imitating different accents.
Lightens the mood, helps students relax and enjoy the process. Now, looking at the notes, I see we revisited some pronunciation challenges from previous classes. Bird versus beard, brother, variety, and without.
It's a good reminder that language learning is a continuous process, always building upon what we've learned, refining our skills.
It is. And it's not just about memorizing rules, it's about developing that feel for the language, an intuition for what sounds right.
Sometimes that intuition comes from making mistakes and learning from them. I remember when I first started learning Portuguese, I kept mixing up the words for beach and pregnant.
Oh my, that must have led to some interesting conversations.
It sure did, but it taught me the importance of paying attention to context and not being afraid to laugh at myself.
That's the spirit.
Now, besides those repeat offenders, we introduced some new pronunciation challenges in this class. Cucumber, absorb, refuge, overlook, considerable, environmental, semestra, and acre. Those are just a few examples. We try to expose our student to a wide range of vocabulary and pronunciation challenges, pushing them to expand their comfort zones and become more fluent speakers of English.
We do. So let's dive into a few of those pronunciation challenges, starting with those that often trip up English language learners. Cucumber is one that always comes to mind.
It is. It's that combination of sounds, especially for those who aren't used to the Q and cum sounds in English. We break it down syllable by syllable, focusing on the placement of the tongue and the movement of the mouth.
We do. And then there's absorb, another tricky one because of that B sound following the S. We show them how to slightly voice the B to create that smooth transition between the sounds.
Right. And we can't forget refuge and overlook, two words that can be challenging because of the stress patterns. Refuge has the emphasis on the first syllable REH-fied, while overlook has the stress on the first syllable of overlook. It's all about getting that rhythm and flow just right.
It is. That rhythm and flow are so important for sounding natural and confident when you speak English. You know, it's kind of like dancing. You got to feel the beat and move with it.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of feeling the beat, let's move on to the next section of our class notes. Language usage. This is where we get into those little phrases that can make a big difference in your fluency.
Yes, we're talking about phrases like, how do you spell that? That's adorable, as well as, and scientists have long noted that. They might seem simple, but they're the building blocks of conversation.
They are. And what's so interesting is how these phrases reflect the culture of English-speaking countries. Take "that's adorable," for example. You hear it all the time. Complimenting a baby's outfit, expressing appreciation for a thoughtful gesture.
Exactly. It's that touch of warmth and affection so common in American culture, and it shows how language isn't just about conveying information. It's about expressing emotions, building relationships, and navigating social situations.
Now imagine trying to have a conversation about climate change without knowing how to say, "Scientists have long noted that." You wouldn't be able to effectively participate in the discussion.
Right, or trying to clarify a spelling without knowing how to ask, how do you spell that? These seemingly simple phrases, essential for clear communication and active participation.
And that's what we aimed for at Academia BSB, to give our students the tools to not just speak English, but to communicate effectively in real-world situations, to express their thoughts, share their ideas, and connect with others on a meaningful level.
Absolutely. And it's not just about mastering grammar and vocabulary. It's about understanding the nuances of the language, the cultural context, the unspoken rules of communication.
And that brings us to the next section of our class notes, idiomatic expressions. Those quirky phrases that don't always make sense literally, but add color and personality to the language.
Yes. Now, looking at the notes, I see this section is blank. Does that mean we didn't cover any idiomatic expressions in this class?
Good question. Not at all. It just means we integrate them naturally into other sections, weaving them into the fabric of our conversations.
Exactly.
So instead of a separate lesson on idiomatic expressions, we sprinkle them throughout the class. We demonstrate how they're used in context.
We do. We want our students to experience the language organically, to hear those idiomatic expressions in action, and gradually incorporate them into their own vocabulary.
You know, sometimes those idiomatic expressions could be a source of humor and amusement. They offer a glimpse into the culture and how people think.
They're like little puzzles to solve. And once you crack the code, they're incredibly rewarding. They add depth and sophistication to your English.
And speaking of puzzles, let's move on to a section that often feels like a linguistic labyrinth for English language learners. Phrasal verbs.
Ah, yes. Those combinations of verbs and prepositions, they can seem so unpredictable and confusing.
But they're an essential part of English, right? Mastering them can really enhance your fluency and naturalness.
Absolutely. That's why we dedicate a good chunk of class time to breaking down those phrasal verbs, explaining the logic behind them, and providing lots of examples.
Now, looking at the notes, I see we focused on phrasal verbs with up, down, at, in, on, and out in this class. These are some of the most common prepositions used in phrasal verbs. Mastering them can really boost your confidence.
For sure.
And what's so interesting is how the preposition often adds a specific nuance to the meaning of the verb. Take up, for example. It often indicates completion or improvement, like in wake up, give up, cheer up.
Right. And then we have down, which often implies a decrease or a negative apton like calm down, break down, or turn down.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing those subtle shifts in meaning and using those phrasal verbs with precision. And of course, it takes practice, lots and lots of practice.
It does, and that's where our reading passage comes in. It's titled Supersized Earth, From a Glider to an Airplane, packed with phrasal verbs offering students a chance to see them in action.
It is. And what's really cool about this passage is that it not only highlights phrasal verbs, but it also gives us a glimpse into the history of flight, connecting language learning to a fascinating historical event.
Exactly, it is.
A perfect example of how Academia BSB integrates various elements of language learning into a cohesive and engaging experience.
You know, it's not just about learning grammar in isolation. It's about seeing how those grammatical structures function in real-world contexts, how they're used to tell stories, convey information, and express ideas.
And that brings us to the next section of our class notes, which focuses on writing. And we challenged our students to write about a significant historical event, Brazilian Independence Day.
Now, that's a task that requires a deep understanding of not just language, but also history and culture. Students have to research the event, organize their thoughts, and express their ideas in a clear and compelling way.
And you know, writing in a second language can be intimidating, but we provide our students with the tools and support they need to succeed. We guide them through the writing process, offering feedback and encouragement along the way.
We do, and we also emphasize the importance of revision and editing, helping students to refine their writing and express themselves clearly and precisely.
So let's take a peek at the first draft of the Brazilian Independence Day essay. It's a collaborative effort by our students, Reinaldo and Mario.
Okay. And you know, what strikes me is how much effort they put into researching the historical context. They've clearly done their homework and have a good grasp of the events leading up to Brazilian independence.
They do. And their writing shows a real understanding of this event's significance, not just for Brazil, but for the wider region. They recognize the impact it had on the balance of power in South America and the struggle for independence throughout the continent.
They do. But of course, as with any first draft, there's always room for improvement. We point out areas where they could strengthen their arguments, add more supporting evidence, and refine their language use.
And we also encourage them to think about their audience, the purpose of their writing. Are they writing to inform, persuade, or entertain? And how can they tailor their language and style to achieve that purpose?
Exactly.
It's all about those subtle choices that make a piece of writing truly effective.
It is. Now, speaking of effective writing, let's move on to a piece that really captured my imagination, the short story, A Veteran Friendship. It's a beautifully crafted piece. It explores the complexities of human connection, especially the bonds forged through shared experiences.
It is, and what I find so compelling is the way it weaves together personal narratives with historical events. It's a reminder that history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about the lives of individuals who lived through those times.
It is, and the story does a masterful job of incorporating many of the vocabulary words from class, like bird, beard, coffee, refuge, acres, absorb, overlook, variety, come, and movie. It shows how those words can be used in a creative and meaningful way to tell a compelling story.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the power of language, to evoke emotions, create vivid imagery, and transport us to different times and places.
It is. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's touch on the homework, assignment, and resources we provide to support our students' learning.
Great idea.
For homework, we ask the students to research and write about Memorial Day, an American holiday that honors those who have died while serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. This assignment builds on those themes of veteran friendship and sacrifice we explored in the short story.
Right, and we provided them to some excellent bibliographic references to guide their research, ensuring they have access to accurate and insightful information.
We did, and looking ahead, our next class focuses on air traffic control, a topic that combines technology, language, and safety.
It's a fascinating field. It highlights the crucial role of clear communication in making sure air travel runs smoothly.
It does. We'll be exploring vocabulary related to aviation, navigation, and communication protocols, giving students a glimpse into the complex world of air traffic control.
Sounds exciting. And to wrap up this section of our class notes, we have the class stats. They provide a snapshot of our students' progress, like a report card for language learners. Shows how they're developing their skills in vocabulary, pronunciation, fluency, and comprehension.
And I'm happy to report that Reinaldo and Mario are making excellent progress. They've added 19 new words to their vocabulary, bringing their comprehensive lexicon repertory to 977 words. That's a big increase.
It is, and their oral fluency and speech engagement span has reached 50 minutes, meaning they can comfortably participate in conversations for extended periods without feeling lost or overwhelmed.
That's right. And maybe even more impressive, the improvement in their phonetic deviation ratio, which has decreased by a whopping 200%. This means they're making significant strides in their pronunciation, sounding more and more like native English speakers.
It's amazing. These class stats are a testament to their hard work and dedication, and a reflection of how effective the Academia BSB methodology is.
It's proof that our approach, which combines personalized instruction with engaging content and a supportive learning environment, really works.
It really does. Well, that wraps up part 1 of our deep dive into the world of Academia BSB.
Join us next time as we continue exploring the nuances of language learning and the transformative power of communication. It really is amazing to see the progress our students make. It's a testament to their hard work and dedication, but also to how we approach things here at Academia BSB.
I completely agree. We worked hard to create a dynamic and supportive learning environment, a place where students feel comfortable taking risks, pushing themselves.
And that leads to those moments, those breakthroughs, when a student suddenly grasps a concept or masters a pronunciation challenge they've been working on.
Those are so rewarding for both the student and the teacher, like watching a flower bloom.
Exactly. It's a reminder that language learning is a journey.
A journey, absolutely. Speaking of journeys, let's revisit that reading passage we mentioned. Supersized Earth, from a glider to an airplane. It's a fascinating look at the Wright brothers, their pioneering spirit, that relentless pursuit of human flight.
It really is, and it's a perfect example of how we use authentic materials in our classes. We want students engaging with real-world texts, not just textbook exercises.
It makes learning so much more relevant and engaging. So let's take a closer look at this passage, how it uses those phrasal verbs we've been talking about.
Okay, sounds good. The passage starts with this sentence. Today, billions of us can cross the planet in a matter of hours. Now, what phrasal verb would fit there?
Well, we're talking about air travel, so I'm thinking fly across would be a good fit. It captures the speed and ease of modern aviation.
You got it, and look at the passage continues, but that everyday miracle in a rather humble way. What phrasal verb would complete that sentence?
Considering we're talking about the beginning of something incredible, I'd say began in fits perfectly. It emphasizes the contrast between the incredible achievement of flight and its humble origin.
Exactly. And the passage takes us back to that windy sand dune in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where the Wright brothers did their groundbreaking experiments.
It does, and it paints such a vivid picture of their struggles and triumphs, experimenting with designs, learning from mistakes, and slowly refining their glider.
And notice how the passage uses phrasal verbs, like going up and down, put some weight in, try shifting, put a rudder on, and nose up, all to describe those early mechanics of flight.
Those phrasal verbs really add detail and precision. It's like we're right there with them, experiencing the thrill and uncertainty of those early flights.
And it reminds us even the most groundbreaking innovations, they often start small. Trial and error, a willingness to push boundaries.
And that spirit of innovation is something we try to instill in our students, encouraging them to be curious, to ask questions, to experiment with language, and to not be afraid of making mistakes.
Because it's through mistakes that we learn and grow.
That's right. Now, moving on from historical analysis to creative storytelling, this class also studied a captivating short story titled A Veteran Friendship.
Oh, yes. That story is a beautiful example of how language can explore human emotion, particularly the bonds built through shared experiences.
It follows these veterans as they navigate life after war, finding comfort and support in their shared memories, and in that unbreakable bond they forged on the battlefield.
Right.
What's remarkable is how the author blends those personal narratives with historical events, grounding the story in a specific time and place.
Exactly. It's a reminder that history is made up of individual stories, lives touched by conflict and resilience.
It is, and the story does a fantastic job incorporating those vocabulary words from class, demonstrating how they can be used creatively to paint vivid pictures and evoke powerful emotions.
Absolutely. For instance, the word refuge takes on a whole new meaning in the context of the veteran and shared experiences. It's not just a physical safe place, it's also a metaphorical one, where they find comfort and understanding with others who've gone through similar things.
Right, and the word overlook is used powerfully to describe how society often fails to truly see the sacrifices of veterans, overlooking their invisible wounds, the difficulties they face returning to civilian life.
The story is really a testament to the power of language, to illuminate the human experience, to give voice to those who have been silenced, to foster empathy and understanding.
It's a great reminder that learning a language is more than just grammar and words. It's about gaining access to a world of stories, perspectives, and emotions.
And those stories can connect us, challenge us, inspire us.
So true. Now, before we finish our deep dive into this A2 class, let's touch on the homework assignment and the next session's topic.
Good idea. For homework, we asked our students to dig deeper into veteran friendships. By researching and writing about Memorial Day, it's an American holiday honoring those who died serving in the U.S. Armed Forces.
This assignment encourages students to explore the cultural significance of holidays, how different societies remember their history and honor their heroes.
It does. And looking ahead to our next class, we're shifting gears. From history to technology, we'll be exploring air traffic control.
This is a cool opportunity to dive into specialized vocabulary related to aviation, navigation, and communication protocols. It highlights how crucial language is in keeping air travel safe and efficient.
It is. It's a reminder that language isn't just about communication. It's also a key part of our modern infrastructure. It underpins everything from transportation to global commerce.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to think about the transformative power of language learning.
It really is transformative. It broadens our horizons, it deepens our understanding of the world, and empowers us to connect with others meaningfully.
It's about so much more than just acquiring words and grammar. It's about cultivating empathy, sparking curiosity, and fostering a lifelong love of learning.
And that brings us back to the core of the Academia BSB philosophy. It's not just about the language.
It's all about communication. And you know what's truly remarkable about communication is it goes beyond just speaking or writing.
Oh, for sure.
It's about listening, observing, understanding those unspoken things too.
You're right. Reading between the lines, picking up on those little nuances, body language, tone of voice, facial expressions.
It's about connecting on a deeper level, empathizing with others, building those bridges of understanding.
And that's what we really try to foster in our students here at Academia BSB, that ability to communicate well, not just in English, but in that language of human connection.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into Academia BSB, let's take one last look at those class stats. Those numbers tell a story of progress and dedication, and the power of good language learning.
They do, and what a story it is. Reinaldo and Mario have come so far in such a short time, expanding their vocabulary, improving their pronunciation, and gaining confidence to express themselves in English.
Right. Their comprehensive lexicon repertoire has grown to a whopping 977 words. They can now have conversations for a full 50 minutes without feeling lost or overwhelmed. And their phonetic deviation ratio, down by a remarkable 200%.
It is remarkable. These stats are a testament to their hard work. They reflect how effective our approach really is. But beyond the numbers, what really inspires us?
What's that?
Seeing our students then blossom as communicators.
Yes. Witnessing that spark when they realize they can understand and be understood in another language.
That's the magic of language learning. It opens doors to new worlds, new perspectives, new possibilities.
And that's what Academia BSB is all about. Empowering our students to navigate those new worlds with confidence, with fluency, and a deep appreciation for the power of communication.
And as we always say here in Academia BSB,
it's not only about the language.
It's all about communication.
So until next time, keep exploring the power of language, keep connecting with others, and keep those conversations flowing.
We'll see you on our next deep dive into the fascinating world of language learning.